Hello, welcome. You got it? All right. Hello, welcome to Eden Hope Academy. I'm Kim.
I'm Jack.
Hi, William.
I'm Reagan.
And we are on week number 6. I'm so glad you're with us today. So open up your books, show them Jack, give it a wiggle, and let's start with Bible. And I'm going to read it. If you can read along with me. And if you can't read, that's fine. You can just listen. All right, so it says, delight yourself in the Lord. So Reagan, can you throw this up? Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires and petitions of your heart. Commit your ways to the Lord. Trust in Him also, and He will do it. So what is this saying, Reagan?
I don't know.
You don't know? That's okay. It says, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires and petitions of your heart. So when we are really focusing on God, when we say, I want to be so dependent on God that I'm independent of the world, so throw that up. Thank you. So when we say things like that, when we are so dependent on God that we're not thinking about the world, then God gives us the desires of our hearts. So it's not like we're saying, oh, you know something, I want a new Lamborghini or I want a Ferrari or something like that. No, we're waiting for God to give us those desires so we know which direction He wants us to go in. And then He will, and He'll provide those to us, and we will be able to glorify Him through it. So it's so cool the way it works. And so it says, draw a picture of you loving someone who has been unkind to you. I wonder why we wrote that. This verse is really hard sometimes. I think that is incorrect. So everyone go, yikes!
Yikes!
Okay, so let's cross through that. And I want you to draw a picture of yourself delighting in God because He is giving you something that He has put on your heart. Can you do that for us? Excellent. Okay, so let's pause. So pause. Give me some pause noise. Everyone freeze. Okay, now we're back. Good job, guys. All right, and we're going to talk about Black Tuesday. So throw up Black Tuesday. All right. October 29th, 1929 was Black Tuesday. Wall Street investors traded away 16 million shares at the New York Stock Exchange. Billions of dollars right down the drain. The industrial world was feeling the pain. 10 long years in the Great Depression started on Black Tuesday. Any questions? All right, so let's go back in time. Boop, 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 boop. Just a little bit back in time. And what was last year? Last year was the Roaring 20s. So if you remember in the Roaring 20s, you could just buy anything pretty much. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And so they were just buying. And remember, they were buying on margin, meaning they were buying on debt, and they didn't really have the money for this. So when the stock market crashed, the banks came knocking at the door. So knock at the door, Jack. And the bank said, okay, I want your house. And people were like, whoa. I only put the house as collateral, meaning as the backing for my loan, because I didn't actually think that you were ever going to take my house from me. And the bank said, it doesn't matter to us. We're taking your house anyway. And they lost everything. So it started this global depression. And the depression hit the United States especially hard. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about when the banks finally came, when the stock market crashed, all those things that people were getting margins on went away. And all of a sudden, the people had to give back the things that they had put as collateral on their loans. Their margins the margins were called, is what they called it. So here I want you to draw a picture of the shock. So give me some shock faces. The shock on people's faces when they realized that they had placed too much trust in the stock market. So who should we trust, Jack?
Jesus.
We should trust God. And so when we're trusting God, are we running after things of the world? Are we trying to grab, or are we content?
We are content.
We are content.
We are the contento.
We are content.
So God wants us to be content with what He's given us. He doesn't want us always running out and getting these big loans for the next big things. He wants us to be content with what we have. So in here, you can draw a picture of the shock on the people's faces. Give us shock faces. Or you can draw a picture of someone content because they have waited on God and God has provided for them. So either way would be great. All right, so let's go on. We're going to talk about Darlene Rose. And Darlene Rose was just in her early 20s, and she got married to a missionary, and they went to Indonesia, and she was so excited because she was from the Midwest. And she said when she breathed in Indonesia, let's breathe in. She said she smelled spices in the air like cinnamon and nutmeg and clove that she had never smelled in the air in the Midwest. And she was so in love with this new culture. She thought it was such a privilege. And so then they went to Papua New Guinea. And Papua New Guinea had clouds all around it, and almost no one had explored it. But during World War II, during World War I, they had flown some planes over it, and they realized there were some people down there. And so they decided to go and tell them about Jesus Christ. And so her husband was assigned there, and then she was assigned to a little school of native children. And so she went, so she must have been very adventuresome to leave the Midwest, go to this island and teach these children. And then during World War II, the Japanese came and they captured her and some other missionary women, and they marched them around the island for 4 years with very little to eat, and several of them died. But she survived, and when she left, she wrote a book about her experiences, and she wrote a book just telling how God had preserved her life through those 4 years of really hardship. So I want you to read more about her this year, and I want you to really explore her because she was a really cool woman. And then below us it says, delight yourself in the Lord. In Lincoln, so let's link our arms. It says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires and petitions of your heart. Commit your ways to the Lord and trust in him. And then it says, how did Darlene Rose delight herself in God? So I want you to read about her and try to think of ways that she delighted herself in God even when she was a captive by the Japanese, and they were not kind to her. So even when it was the worst time in her life, as bad as it could get, to be marching through a jungle in Papua New Guinea without anyone around her who, like her husband or a family, and to be starving sometimes and have this really hard time, even then she delighted in God. So it just tells us that when God says this verse, it's not like we're supposed to delight in, oh, I want new Legos, or oh, I want this. It's really delighting ourselves in him, and he will give us more of him. So it's a really awesome verse. Okay, so talk to your parents about that, and let's go on. And we've got first, and so Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he figured that out pretty quickly, and he stood against the against the Nazi people. And so, you okay, Reagan?
My head's tired.
Oh, okay. So Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So Reagan, do you want me to sit down? You want to say goodbye to them real quick? So, okay, so we're going to go into Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and Reagan's going to say bye for a little bit.
Bye, everyone.
All right,
Bye.
so Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a pastor in Germany, and he could see what was going on with World War I. And he could see that after World War I, the Germans started blaming the Jewish people for all of the things that had gone wrong. Now, was it the Jewish people's fault? No, it was not the Jewish people's fault. But the Germans, they started making cartoons about Jewish people and calling them ugly and calling them vile things. And they started just finding every way they could to put down Jewish people. And so sometimes when you have a common enemy, you think you're friends. So sometimes when you're both cutting down or putting down something else, then it makes you feel like you're superior to it. And that's what was happening in Germany. But as a whole country, they were just picking on Jewish people all the time, to the point that it became normal, like normal everyday speech, to say negative, nasty things about Jewish people. So Dietrich Bonhoeffer got this, and he realized that it was really wrong. And so he started speaking up. And other people would say, don't say anything because you're going to get in trouble. Other people will be upset if you say something. And so Dietrich Bonhoeffer had a couple of things that he said. He had lots of great things to say. But he said to not speak is to speak. So what do you think about that? To not speak is to speak. What do you think he meant?
He meant stop being rude to those people.
He did, but he meant by your silence. If someone's saying something about someone else and you say nothing, you are kind of agreeing with them, right? Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to say, you know something, I found out that such and such doesn't brush her teeth at all, like ever. And that was really hurtful to that person, and then you said nothing about it, then I could go to someone else and say, you know, Jack and I both agree that such and such never brushes her teeth. Now, what do you think that would do to that person? That would make her feel really badly, but then it's like we're kind of ganging up on her. Do you see that? So whether you agreed with me or not, I can assume that you agreed with me because you didn't say anything.
Okay.
So he says to not speak is to speak. How about to not act is to act? Is that kind of the same thing?
I don't know. I don't know. Hi, William.
Okay, so it's kind of the same thing. When we don't act, when we know what the right thing to do is, it's actually acting. It's actually doing something to support the thing that we know is bad. So those are really key things. I want you to talk about these 4 things with your parents today, and I want you to really think about them and ask your mom and dad, have you ever had to act when it was really hard, when it was against what everyone else was doing? Because that takes true courage. All right, so now we're going to go on to history. In the 1920s, so this is back, so let's go back just a little bit. In the can you throw this up, please, as we're saying it? In the 1920s, farmers used mechanized techniques, plowing topsoils with tractors. Their crops grew and hit their peaks. With corn over there and wheat over there, breaking up the dirt so it blew in the air. In the 1930s, the Dust Bowl began to blow. So what happened is that, remember, let's go back a little more again. You're going back the wrong direction. This way. Okay, so in the early 1900s, remember what happened? Henry Ford and
Henry Ford blew up a wall to get his Model T Ford out of the wall.
Exactly. Knuckles. All right, so Henry Ford worked on a car. He was not the first one to develop a car. That would be Benz, but he was one of the first ones to develop a car. And so all of a sudden, everything became mechanized. It wasn't just the automobile. It was tractors. It was all kinds of stuff. And so farmers started using these in their fields, and they started plowing them up. And they plowed up these fields, and guess what? They messed up. Glomalin. Can you say that? Glomalin. Actually, they didn't find out about glomalin until the early 2000s, and it was my aunt who discovered it at the Department of Agriculture, Sally Wright. And glomalin, Dr. Sally Wright, glomalin is a substance that keeps dirt together. But when they plowed and plowed and plowed, and they kept on planting the same crops again and again and again, guess what happened? It destroyed the glomalin. Glomalin is a substance, it's kind of like the glue that keeps soil together. And they destroyed it, and so it became dust. And so all of the great topsoil became this dust that caused these dust storms. Oh. So not only had the people lost their money, but the farmers in the Midwest lost their ability to plant crops and make crops grow because it was just dust. It was called the Dust Bowl.
Wow.
Pretty cool, huh? Mm-hmm. All right, so... And it was because of the mechanization. So we can definitely, Pinky link me, we can definitely link that to Henry Ford. The Dust Bowl could go to Henry Ford because he mechanized things. And then we could definitely link it to the Great Depression because maybe the farmers could have come up with different ways to fix their crops and different things that they could do. But since there was no money, they couldn't come up with new inventions, new ways. And so it just brought the United States down into this really dark time in our history. So next we have Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and Monaco. Do you want to go? So these are countries in southern Europe. So let's say them together. Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and Monaco.
You want to go?
That's it for week 6 for our book part. I'm so proud of you. We've gotten through it together. Good job, Jack Justice. Good job.
Yeah.
And we'll see you at Timeline Cards in just a second. Thank you.
Bye, future self and William.